than our local cable subscribers.
Hours before it wasn't going to be possible. And so the plein air also didn't happen, but there, it was a good, like sort of soft launch of the events, the new events. And again, Art Walk was a great success. So yeah. For public art, we've got a lot going on with public art. So the Public Art Committee approved a proposal for a sculpture, the new mosaic sculpture on Union Street, pending a revision of a part of their rendering. The committee had concerns with representation of the Native American historical component that was being included. We very much appreciated that it was being included and had some concerns regarding the way it was being included. And so I spoke to a community member who is of Native descent, and she put me in touch with a chief from the tribe, and got a lot of guidance, thank you, from her, and are now moving forward with representation that's not human, that is more about artifacts and maps, and so that we are not including depictions that were created by non-Native people to begin with. So it was definitely educational, and I felt really great, just like as a civil servant who like puts art in the streets, to learn more about it. And the artists were very receptive to all this from the get-go, which I appreciated. They were like, we're public artists, we want to do this well, and want this to be well received and meaningful, and they were also very open to learning. So I felt good about getting the green lights and blessings from the Native community members that we were in touch with. And the Public Art Committee will be meeting again to formally approve the new rendering. One of the artists had been traveling and just got back last Tuesday, so I'm expecting to receive an updated rendering this week. But they sent me a very long sort of like description of what their process has been, what they're planning to do, and so it's just a matter of putting it down. So we might have to revise the timeline. Right now, we are set to the original timeline was to install the new sculpture in September. And we'll have to talk to see if it still feels feasible or not. But so that's happening. In terms of the utility boxes, the Power to the People, we have hired, or I think, well, we're working with Michael Poole. DPW took everything out from inside of the utility box. Michael Poole is doing his welding and sort of like refurbishing it so that it's going to now be a little comment box. I've been in touch with Greg Nuttleman. They're going to be pouring the concrete pad at the end of this week. You don't know that yet, but that's great. And then Amy Johnquist. So then they'll be installing it right before Amy Johnquist can paint it. And so the painting, it's sort of like a sequence. We've orchestrated a sequence in accordance with all the needs of our fabricators and artists, and colleagues at DPW. And yeah, so we'll be also coordinating with Easthampton Cultural Council. So there's that. And then the last thing with public art at the moment is we are planning our Have a Heart for Public Art brunch. It's going to be on Sunday, September 20th at Glendale Ridge. We can do 100 people seating at once. We are going to be working with Nini's. We'll be doing the catering, and we are going to be having the jazz group. Tracy has found a new keyboardist, but that's all coming together really nicely. We're talking about prices and price points because it's going to be, it's going to cost us more money to do it this way than it has in the past. So, but we're excited about it.
Is it going to be outside?
Yes, so it's going to be outside.
Is there a tent or just? I haven't been there in a while. I know they've rebuilt some of it.
Yes, a pavilion that can seat 80.
Oh.
And then there's like other areas to sit, but it is, if it is like pouring, it will be canceled.
But if it's really nice, it'll be awesome.
If it's really nice, it will be nice. I think it will be very special. It's such a special place.
Yeah.
And it's like, we knew we were going to do things differently. We didn't know in the beginning what that was going to look like. And so we're all really pleased with how it's come together. And they've been great. They gave us like a very discounted rate. But, you know, there are costs involved that hadn't been before. So, but I think it will be really lovely as long as we were able to do it. Those are the public art updates.
Right.
Cottage Street Cultural District, our next event coming up is the Sidewalk Strut that is happening on Saturday, June 6th. It's from 2 to 5 p.m. and it overlaps Art Walk, which is 4 to 7 p.m. Tracy and Carol Osberg and I met in the parking lot last week, and we've made our layout and we've got a plan. We're going to have 16 vendors at the Makers Market. There's going to also, that will include some community tables. Many of our program partners from Cultural Chaos will be there, including Caravan Puppets, Show Circus Studio, Art in Motion Dance. And there are a few others we'll be reaching out to. We're going to have music on the boardwalk down here. There will be a floating sculpture exhibition in the park. We have invited 3 local artists and groups. We'll be working with Hilltown Charter School. Some youth will be making one of them. Jana Ugoni will be making one, and Peter Ozierlein will be making one. So there will be 3. We'll also have another stage in the municipal parking lot across the street from Marigold. It's been really interesting, like planning this. It's like new and different, but like all the same components, but just like in a different arrangement. It's like, well, it's like lasagna instead of like spaghetti meatball. Like it just feels a little like a rearrangement, but there's definitely been like some learning curves and, you know, getting our footing and understanding what's going to make the most sense. Oh, and our Beats on the Boardwalk programming starts this Thursday night. We've booked all hands like as of yesterday for the entire series. And so Miriam is working on the flyer that we were hoping to like announce tomorrow.
You know, plays tomorrow.
Thursday is, yes. Sarah the Fiddler.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's going to be some fiddle music going on. And the other piece to the Cottage Street Cultural District, I am having, this is what I had meant to talk to you about. I have been having a conversation with some members of the executive committee of the Chamber of Commerce, Easthampton Chamber of Commerce, about the possibility, very exploratory, but the possibility of working together, ECA and the chamber, to co-organize and co-create a street fair event that would take place in the Cottage Street Cultural District. I think it would be if it were to happen, there are many, many more conversations to be had. But in the initial exploratory conversations, they were very receptive to the idea. We have not talked at all about, what that would look like and who would do what and how would it change and how, what would make sense. But they got a new director like a year and a half ago, or actually just like a year ago. Wow. And they're just like, it's really in line with what it is they want to be doing. I know you've been talking with them too, Steve, about Easthampton and just like getting more engaged in the community, bringing what they do into the community where people are engaging already. So I was really happy that they were receptive. I didn't know quite what to expect. And I think that the idea of if we were to work together, we would all have many more conversations. But there is a chamber board meeting next week, Wednesday, May 20th. I'm on the board, and I will be making a short presentation about this, putting a little one sheet together, answering any questions. It's going to be like a 15 to 20 minute, I will present for 8 minutes, and then there will be time to ask questions. But, we took a break, took a pause on cultural chaos this year to try new things. And one of the other things I was hoping to do was to explore more sustainable ways of running a big street festival and working in partnership and collaborative partnership with another stakeholder that's like as invested in we are in wanting that to succeed. When I think about what's involved in an event like Cultural Chaos, and I imagine divvying it up, everything becomes very manageable. My experience so far with the smaller scale events we're planning this year is like everything's much more manageable. I think if we were to do for example, every other year, if there was a larger scale festival, I think we could continue to do some of these smaller activations alongside that as well. So I wanted to make sure you were all aware. I didn't want to get too ahead of things before I understood how they were feeling about it, just like first little taking the temperature. But I wanted to, let you all know, see if you had any questions or if you felt like there was anything that felt very important about me including in what I'm sharing with them next week. But I don't think there's any rush or any urgency about any of this. I think it's going to be a conversation that takes the time it does. But yeah.
Very good. If we can partner with the chamber, that would be amazing. Right. All right. Is there any questions or anybody wanna weigh in on that?
Only that it does tend to show the popularity of the cultural chaos. To want to bring something back in a different form, but
It's a loss, right?
Yeah.
It's a loss in the community. And I feel just, again, so good. I feel like we went about things very responsibly and thoughtfully. And the idea that we could do something differently in a way that was much more kind of like A, within our capacity, and B, didn't, get in the way of being able to do lots of other things. Feels like that would be a very successful arrangement. The other piece that I wanted to make sure I mentioned is we had talked about changing the name of cultural. Like, I think that it would, if this is going to be different, it would be different. And I think to allow for like the ownership and investment of all the different partners, like, I think it would be a really wonderful opportunity to kind of like reimagine, you know, what it could be. Maybe there'd be new elements, you know, maybe it would have a different name. You know, I don't think it would be, I think we'd want to grow
No,
the
sounds good.
idea. And yeah, so I'm like excited to see how the conversation continues, and we'll definitely have more to report at our next meeting.
Great.
And I think if the board is receptive, then I think there will be, we talked about then, you know, members of this committee and members of their committee coming together and having, and really sort of thinking thoughtfully about what that could look like, who would do what financial contributions would come from both, you know, there would be a lot of details to work out, but I think it's all very doable if everyone's on board.
Steve, do you want to give the
Yeah,
update for-
very brief, because basically we're entering that kind of fallow period in the cultural council, or we've officially given out all the money for this year, and now all our 33 different grantees are doing their projects, and we're kind of supporting them, but basically taking a back seat. And our main focus, other than the Amy John Quest public art thing, which is coming up and we already spoke to, is just recruiting new members. So that's what we spent the bulk of our last meeting on, and that's what we're going to be like kind of focusing on, other than helping our existing grantees, just whatever troubleshooting or assisting publicizing their stuff, etc. Because what was it? I think 6 out of the 7 members of our board will hit our 3-year term in September, all at once. So if anyone knows anyone, yeah.
Just to clarify, it's Allison speaking. Just to clarify,
Oh,
it's only 3 years. You can't go beyond.
You, Steven speaking. Yeah, you can do 2 terms. So a term is 3 years, and so anyone can elect to do another term. We've already had 1 member who said they will not. I think we have another one, maybe 2 more that will not. So we will need some new members.
and we can share that, Pasqualina speaking, we can share that out as well.
Thank you. Tracy speaking. I know it's kind of awkward. I did talk to Amy, and she has sanded one of the pieces, so she's been out there. Because of the rain, she needs a good stretch of good weather days before, so she can kind of continue. So she hasn't started painting, but she has sanded and sketched. So she has begun that process. So just update on that. Exciting. So that brings us to discussions. The city budget update.
Yep. So Allison speaking. I'll take this one. Last Wednesday evening, the mayor dropped 2 budgets. One budget, which is based on an override not passing, and one which is based on an override passing. I think also since we last met, the final number was decided. I think it hadn't been at that point, but 6.9 million will be the override amount that voters are voting on June 9th. So it's a referendum. So all registered voters will have the opportunity to weigh in on that. The override passing budget leaves the planning department untouched, which includes Pasqualina and ECA's component of that. With the override not passing, that budget reflects 2 hours per week reduction for Pasqualina and 2 of the other employees in the planning department, and a 14-hour-a-week reduction for our other member of the department, which is substantial. So it will be reducing a full-time position down to 20 hours a week. The impact of that on department services, some of it sort of remains, some of it we'll just have to navigate as it happens. The 20 hours a week was not something that I personally proposed or planned for. It was an unexpected cut, so I've not had the opportunity to fully think through how to best allocate that person's 20 hours. I think the hours that are cut will be effectively absorbed by me because the rest of the staff are union employees with job descriptions and things that, would have to be negotiated and would probably carry an extra cost. So I think, the impact will really be on my capacity to do non-essential functions, grant writing and management and policy and supporting boards and committees. I have 3 meetings at night just this week, and adding 2 more boards that person whose hours are being cut, taking over their boards, can't be out of the house every day of the week. So there will be some impacts to services. And again, Pasqualina's hours would be cut as well as the other staff. So I don't want to speak to the other departments' budgets because it's not my place. And what was presented last week by the mayor was really just sort of a high level and details on what the impacts to other departments would be. I've not seen or heard specifically. Obviously there will be impacts, but I just can't speak to them directly. I'm sorry, just to add, the City Council Finance Committee is meeting this week and next week to discuss the various sections of the budget in more detail. So those are public meetings, hybrid, either and they're in this room, so you could log on online if you wanted to watch, but they'll be available afterwards too. They'll be recorded.
I think May 28th is the day that they're talking about. They had listed culture.
So the Planning Department and Community Preservation Act, which I do both budgets, are this Wednesday, the 13th at 5:30.
Oh,
Culture is Library and Parks and Rec.
Oh, I'm glad. Okay, so it's this Wednesday.
It's this Wednesday, yeah. So the department heads attend those. Staff aren't required to be there, but so yeah, those meetings will be happening and the details will emerge during those meetings. I know some of the city councilors are also trying to get information out to the public on details as it becomes available, because details have been lacking up until this point. So that's where we stand. If you do have specific questions, I can try and address them, but I'll have a better idea after these next 3 weeks. Yeah, that's what I was just looking at. So I think June 1st would be your normally next scheduled meeting. And then, as I said, the override vote is June 9th. Depending on the outcome of the override vote, the city council will adopt one budget or the other.
Would that be on June 10th?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think June 17th is their regularly scheduled meeting, but it might move things around. I'm not sure. To be clear, the city council can only cut from the budget. They cannot add to it.
All right, thank you. Anybody have any comments or anything to add? All right, so we are going to go into our nonprofit option. We had talked about the nonprofit arm, maybe resurrecting that idea in our last meeting, and we put it on the agenda for further discussion.
Yeah, so I learned some positive news. So I had mentioned that I had spoken with a lawyer in Northampton. Her name is Julie Kling. I had talked to her back in 2021, did quite a lot of homework and learning about what would be involved in establishing a nonprofit arm of our municipal organization. In the meantime, the Nashawanak Pond Committee, which is a city committee, has developed a nonprofit arm working with the same lawyer, Julie Kling. So she knows all the ins and outs of our current contemporary Easthampton. She knows the city lawyer, she's done this. And she also is aware of the Manhan Rail Trail is the other example in our municipality of a city committee with a nonprofit arm. So I spoke at length with Beth Tiffany, who's I believe the chair of the National Pond Committee. She's a very active member, who walked me through. She shared their bylaws with me. I didn't print everything out. It was so many pages that I just was like, I can share them with you all. But a lot of information about costs involved and how it went and why it's been beneficial and how easy it was to just get an EIN number and to make the process happen. She found Julie to be very helpful in guiding the process. Julie provided a lot of templates that they then had to sit down and kind of make it meaningful for them. And then I had reached out to Julie Kling and I hadn't heard back, just left her a message we talked a while ago. I was curious if she was still doing that because things change. And I was able to speak with her and she isn't doing as much of that, but she would be really happy to work with us and, had just gone through this whole process with the Nashawanak Pond Committee. In 2021, when I talked to Julie, it sounded like it would cost us anywhere between $500 and $1,500, total, the EIN, there are some administrative fees with establishing the nonprofit plus her paying her. Beth Tiffany told me it cost them less than $500 to do it. She didn't, I don't know what their arrangement was, but it was very minimal in terms of administrative fees. I asked her about their timeline, how long it took them to go from wanting to do this to having it happen. And she said it took quite a while, but it had to do with getting the members together to go through it all. I have quite a lot of experience working with nonprofits. I've never established a nonprofit, but the language, the understanding of the general, what bylaws look like, what a board looks like, all of those things. I feel very, very comfortable navigating that. I'd want some help if this was something we were able to do. But once they had what they wanted, once they had their materials together, she said it was very fast. Within months, it was a few months, it was done. An important piece I want to be very explicit about, and I'm talking to you, Ted, because I remember this was a real concern of yours back when we talked about this before. Originally, it was my understanding, and I won't get into the details, but it was my understanding that this committee had to operate separately from the nonprofit board. And what I have now learned is that they, both of the lawyers talked to each other and found a totally feasible workaround so that there do not have to be two meetings. There can be overlap. So the meeting can all happen at the same time. We would have board members. The way that the Nashawanak Pond Committee works is, I believe she said she had 3 or 4 members that were on both And I think we would want something like that. There would need to be a board chair, a secretary, and a treasurer. And we could think about who we know in this community. We could also like put it out there and see who would want to come forward, but it is very doable. And so there'd be much more cohesiveness in the governing bodies that I think, based on some of our earlier conversations, there were some pretty valid concerns about like, what if the board wanted to like do XYZ, you know, like where would like, what kind of, just the level of influence that they could have. And I think that there are ways to do it so that there is more like consensus and like connectivity between the groups.
When you mentioned the nonprofit arm of this committee, that sounds a little nebulous to me. I mean, I'm not sure what that means.
So
Is the
So we
nonprofit
would
arm somewhat independent of the committee or not?
well, so I think the language in the bylaws is very important. I think that's where it becomes like, it has to be very clear, like what the function of it is. So
Right.
so Easthampton City Arts, so there are many, 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 like organizations like this. There are many, I don't think this is true of our public library, but there are many public libraries with like a Friends of the Library. And why, so we would still exist as an entity, a municipal entity in the city of Easthampton, like 100,000%. The large majority of funding available to arts and cultural activities and programs come from foundation grants that require one to be a 501c3. And so I think in our case, at least the way I see it, this all came up at our last meeting when we were talking about our current budget situation. When we talked about this in 2021, it was like, is now the time to add more? It's gonna take time. There's like administrative aspects of it, but like regardless of what happens with this override, it is a fantastic time, I think, to be, making choices that would support more opportunities for where funding can come from. And so by developing a nonprofit, I call it an arm because I think to me, it's not like, it's an organization that's connected to this municipal organization. It's not an independent, we're not like creating like ECA, the nonprofit, like over there. It's very much any funds, like, and this could be in the bylaws and we would like talk through it and have the lawyers take a look at it. But the funding that would come in through the nonprofit would support ECA's programs. Yeah. It's not even ECA's mission. It's like what we're doing. So let's say Northampton, I can't believe I didn't give this example. So their Northampton Arts Council is a municipal entity. They're also a nonprofit and they are able to, they also have 3 staff and it's like a whole different thing, but they bring in a lot of money through the nonprofit. So our Summer Sounds concert at Park Hill Orchard is going to be like, people buy tickets, like, that could go, if we put that in the nonprofit, we also have a little more flexibility about like how that money is spent and how that money is used. So I honestly feel like with all the, like, it's like all the conversations we had about cultural chaos. It's like things are changing. Funding is becoming like less certain. Like, grants are being revoked by like local grants are being revoked by federal government. Like there's, we're just in a time where things will continue to change for the foreseeable future. So I think we're established enough and we, I think if we put a small team together and like just figured out what we needed to do and continued to like meet. I think it's just a good thing. I don't think there's any, I think the only drawback is like the time involved and administrative, but I feel like it's really worth it for what could come of it. And I do think now's the time. I think we're in a little window. I think if cultural chaos was coming up in a couple weeks, or, you know what I mean? Like, we have some breathing room right now. And I think there's good reason to want to at least explore it further. And the last thing I'll say before I kind of open it up is, I talked to Julie. I said, I have this meeting. I let her know that we'd be talking about it more. And we left it as, regardless of what comes of it, I will be sending her an email just to like, let her know how it went. If the board was receptive, then she and I would set up a time, and maybe Tracy would want to come to that, like to just talk about, like, what does the roadmap look like? Timeline, costs, sequence of things, just to get a clearer sense of, what it would mean.
I think this is really great, and I appreciate you reaching out and getting more information. I'm just thinking about, like, to your question around like the specifics of the shape of this and how it's structured. I think of something like a Friends of group as being primarily or exclusively a fundraising kind of mechanism. And I think it would be a good idea to explore possibilities for a deeper level of integration for more like a public-private hybrid entity. And I don't know how Northampton Arts Council is set up, but I mean, I'm thinking the example in my mind is the Mural Arts Philadelphia is a municipal public-private entity. It's a nonprofit as well. And it has the capacity in that structure for staffing through the nonprofit, for all sorts of other things as well. And some of the funding I've seen has started to be like not open to friends of groups and things like that. But I think it could be a way of kind of stabilizing the base. There might be a level of redundancy in the structure, but having a nonprofit that can mirror what's happening in the municipal aspect of the organization, like especially with like threats to staffing within the municipality, to have the opportunity to shore that up within this other entity. Just to put that out there as like something to potentially explore in the structure of this thing.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And just looking at like, not just what we imagine it to be, but like, well, what are the options and what could happen? Like, what could it look like? I think that's.
And it can do things that we can't then as well. Like, nonprofits have a certain flexibility in other directions, programmatically, like just in
And
so
give
many
a
other
band
ways.
a check.
Hey,
Exactly.
wow. Yeah,
Like,
that's so real.
that's a real thing. Yeah, but yes.
Anybody else?
Well, this is Ted speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
A lot of the preparation is defining what it is you want this organization to do and what it's. Well, that's simple enough. What you want it to do and how you want it to operate and yeah, that's simple enough.
Yeah.
I mean, you want that to be clear, because that goes into the bylaws or the statement of purpose, whatever the applications require. You really do have to make a definition as to what this organization, what you expect this organization to do. And you also build in some flexibility and build in down the road, if it has to change, you have to put that in there as conditions change. You can not mutate the thing, but you can change things as time goes by. So there's a lot
You
of
can, and the Nashawanak Pond Committee has like revised their bylaws a couple of times since they were established just, I want to say, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So like, but yes, exactly. Like we'd want to make sure that this is something to like serve and support who we are, what we're doing in the time we're living in and beyond, and not to confine us. Like we're not looking to be confined. And like now we have to, you know, it has to look like this. I think we want to know, you know, this is an opportunity to like ground, like further solidify the foundation so that we can like further expand and grow. I mean, the way I feel like it's a great summer project. Like, let's take the summer, like in my mind, let's take the summer to like, let's set up a meeting with Julie, like learn more what it's involved. I can tell her like, we kind of want to like be handing this in by August 31st. Like we want to like just really deep dive into what we got to do. And then, you know, kind of like deep and like I don't want to take the next year and a half to like wordsmith the bylaws and like think about. It's more like let's just sort of get this done.
Well, I mean, I think you have kind of the start where you have the bylaws from Nashawanic.
Yep.
I would like, I mean, you said it was a lot, but like just to focus in specifically on how they define their relationship with the municipal committee is super relevant. But I think a lot of those bylaws will be like, if we're not just cutting and pasting them directly, we're just changing a little bit of it. Like that is a good starting base.
I agree.
I get a copy from Northampton's Art Council.
Yeah.
I know. I
Well,
kind of
we-
made me
we-
want to understand how they function and what that looks like more too.
This is gonna be different for every community, but you get a, you know, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just you
Yeah.
tailor it to what our specific
Yeah, a lot.
needs may be, but it's basically, and at the core, it's all pretty much the same.
Yeah. And the fact that we have this like local model that's like so specific to how we operate is like that we don't have to go do that is, I think if we had to go do all that, I might be feeling differently than I am right now. It feels like a no-brainer to at least learn more.
Right, absolutely.
Wonderful.
I'm Cindy speaking. I have a question. So like the Oxbow, and my everything is through like their lenses. Like we've thought of becoming a nonprofit ourselves at different times, but like everyone always hits the brakes with like, oh my gosh, there's so much annual paperwork. Who's going to do that? Because you have to reapply every year, right? For like the nonprofit status.
We don't reapply every year.
You know,
You
like
did an annual
there's not
report.
a ton of stuff to do because I feel like that's where everything falls apart for us. But I guess like you have all that infrastructure.
I think it depends on a lot. I used to be the executive director of a nonprofit that was bringing in like $765,000 a year. We had 22 staff. We had multiple locations. It was in New York City. We had a shop. There was sales tax. It was like a lot of like administrative, you know, like being audited, like what the auditing process looked like every year. I think scale matters. And I also know that it's become much easier to become a nonprofit than it used to be. And I think the difference here is that like we do have a staff person and I happen to have experience doing it, but it really is not, I feel like I think it's worth
Whatever,
I think it's
yeah.
worth what it is.
Right.
And in certain ways I think it's simpler than municipal paperwork processing in certain ways. So yeah, it's mostly an annual audit. So all of our, it's all public. So like the money that comes in, what that looks like, it's all posted, and that happens through an annual audit. Which I imagine in our case would be straightforward. I mean, you know, we don't have like a store, you know, it would be donations, it would be grants. Yeah, the administrative piece doesn't scare me. I think for an organization
I can't help
like ours, I think it's really would be very reasonable, and it would mean the opportunity to like bring in a lot more money from a lot more sources, which is just, I think, smart if we can diversify our income streams anyway.
Great. More to explore.
Yeah. I feel
So,
excited.
so I will keep this on the agenda for next month and
Great.
we can do the updates. Once
Yeah.
you talk to Julie again and
Do we need to vote on this like a green light, or are we still like explore it? Maybe next meeting we would vote to do it.
I think, Allison speaking, I think it makes sense to have a motion to authorize you to continue conversations.
Okay.
with-
does anybody want to make a motion to further conversations with the lawyer?
Can I just add that,
Yeah, sure.
sorry, Claude speaking, to, if it's feasible in those conversations to like have a goal of coming back to the next meeting with a few, like maybe like a menu of potential directions for structure as like a starting place for like, what are those decision points that we need to be making, and like, what is the function of this, goals, et cetera?
Yes, and I would like to maybe talk with you a little more about that, in terms, yeah. Or if you could just like a menu of possible directions for what that can look like and support, like. Okay. I mean, we don't.
So Allison speaking, I would just suggest if anybody has strong opinions or feelings about what relationship you would want the two to have, to share them directly with us.
That's
And
kind of,
then that can be conglomerated and brought to the next meeting.
that's kind of the heartbeat of the thing, as to what the relationship is going to be. I was just Ted speaking, and I also would do a simple thing like, whoever at the state level handles these things, you get the application package, see what it is they require. ECA, page 1, page 2.
Yeah, I had called the IRS in 2021 when we were learning about this, and I had done this maybe 10 years before, and it was like someone answered the phone. Like there's all this support. There's so many more nonprofits now. You know, it's like they've really developed that. So, yeah.
That's where you have to
Finding
begin
out.
anyways, filling out the paperwork.
And
Secretary of State's office. whoever handles
It, yep, Allison speaking, it is the Secretary of State. And there is a whole website.
So do we want to make a motion to further the conversation with Julie?
I make a motion to authorize Pascalina to continue talks with Julie regarding founding a nonprofit arm of ECA.
Second. Claude.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anything from the Easthampton Futures Project? No. All right. Anybody have any new business? All right, then I guess the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
thank you, everyone.
And our local cable subscribers.